Welcome back to the Investor Professor Podcast. This is Dr. Ryan Peckham. This is episode 23. And of course, in this episode, we are going to once again talk about earnings of some major companies. I'm going to give you some definitions that allow you to be able to kind of build your financial vocabulary when it comes to companies reporting and what to actually look for and what it means. I think that could be helpful for you going forward. And then we're also going to talk about a company you don't know. Actually, you know them, you just don't know you know them. And so we'll discuss, how do we find companies that are producing everything around us? We just don't know that they're doing it. And is that a good place to look for investments? I think you'll be surprised by this one. We always talk about companies that you know. And so now it's time to branch out and really kind of spread our wings a little bit and talk about some others. So get your mind right. Let's get to work. All right, here we go. Used to be so nervous doing this. Now I'm just pumped up. Nerves left me, I don't know, about 10 episodes ago. And I'm talking, Eminem, knees weak, arms are sweaty type nervous. You know what I mean? But today, it's just too much to be excited about to be nervous. So let's get into this. We have half of the S&P 500 companies have reported. And this past week, we had the big ones report. We had Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Apple, the big guns, if you will. Microsoft actually overtook Apple as the most valuable company in the world, if you can believe that. So when you look at some of these, I just want to, before I share these numbers with you, because they are massive, massive numbers with how much these companies make. Right. And so what you look at first is revenue. And revenue, if you don't know, is sales. This is how much these companies sold within the past 3 months. So that's something to remember. The past 3 months, this is how much these companies sold. So you have to keep in mind that revenue isn't what they get to keep, right? That's just their sales. Then you have to take out expenses, which could be cost of goods sold. And then you're left with their operating income, which is then you take out all the expenses of the company. But it is a good barometer. So how much are they selling? What's their margin? So when you look at what your operating income is, you divide that by your revenue and you get your profit margin, right? So the higher the profit margin, the better off it is. So when you look at somebody like, when we talk about Amazon, they might have high sales, but they're also going to have a high cost of goods sold versus somebody like a Microsoft or a Google or somebody like that. So the margin really matters. How profitable is this company? So when we start looking at these, it is amazing to see the amount of sales that they have. So just as an example, Apple sold $83 billion of revenue the past 3 months, okay? The past 3 months. So you times that by 4, and that would be yearly $332 billion that Apple produces. So just as an example, when you look at countries' GDP, the GDP of countries, so GDP stands for gross domestic product. How much does a company produce? Well, number 35 on the list of countries is Denmark, and it's $330 billion. So you have Apple with sales greater than Denmark's GDP, which is pretty crazy, right? And so you look at all these, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple. They're producing as much as countries do. It's just insane when you start to think about it that way. How big these companies have become. It's just absolutely tremendous. So the best quarter probably of the big four, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, the best quarter would probably be going to Microsoft, who did an amazing job. Their gross margin was 70%, which is just a huge, huge number. And really, this is what helped propel them to be now the most valuable company in the world, which I'm sure there'll be a lot of back and forth on this with Apple as the months come around. But their cloud business is just tremendous. And one of the things that the CEO Nadella said for Microsoft was that companies that invest in technology are able to basically kind of hold off inflation, because the gains that you get from increasing your productivity from technology allows you to save cost other places. So Microsoft definitely clicking on all cylinders. Google had another tremendous quarter. I say Google, parent company's Alphabet, and they had revenues of $65 billion, which is just tremendous. They had earnings per share that grew 70% year over year to almost $28. So just an amazing number from them too. And then you kind of get to the sticky points. Apple's quarter was okay. The bright spot for them was services. Their services continue to increase. They did see some weakness in because of supply chain issues. They think supply chain issues cost them about $6 billion in this previous quarter. They only had about 2 or 3 days of the quarter where they were selling their new phone. So look for this next quarter to be much stronger. And then Amazon, of all the big companies, Amazon did not have that good of a quarter, which is going to sound, it's going to sound nuts because they sold $110.8 billion worth of goods. But the expectation was actually that they would sell more. They sold a little bit more from last year because of all the pandemic. People were at home ordering tons of stuff online. Their guidance wasn't that good for the Christmas quarter that's coming up. The expectation was $142 billion. I mean, can you believe that? I mean, kids, close your ears, but Amazon is the real Santa Claus. I mean, $142 billion was what the expectation was for the Christmas quarter. They said they'd probably do between 130 and 140 billion. But Amazon struggling with a lot of things that other companies are struggling with, finding workers and rising expenses for a lot of things that go into that service business of delivering all those packages. Whereas Amazon's cloud business was actually the brightest spot of their quarter. That continues to grow tremendously well. Amazon Web Services is the name for that, and that looks to be really, really good. So when you look at it, Amazon has not had the greatest year stock price-wise. The S&P 500 is up about 21% this year, and Amazon's only up 6%. Now, it had a tremendous 2020, but as far as 2021 is concerned, Amazon has not done very well stock price-wise. And Amazon has always been very, very good at pumping money back into the business, spending a lot of money to build out distribution centers, all these kind of things. And they once again in the conference call discussed, how much money they are looking at putting back in to build up their infrastructure once more to help clear up a bunch of issues that they're having with delivering packages, buying more planes, building more distribution centers to try to ramp up one-day delivery next year. Consumers we are no longer happy with 2-day delivery. We want 1-day delivery. So it's amazing how used to new technology we get, and then we're like, oh, this isn't good enough. If I order something, I need it to be here within the next 5 minutes. So, Amazon's dealing with those issues, and so we'll see on that. I mean, we'll have to see. Normally, as companies get bigger, it takes a little bit for their stock to move sometimes because it becomes harder to move the needle, if you will. One other company that I really liked their quarter was AbbVie. And AbbVie, their most notable product that you'll probably know if you don't know the company name offhand is Botox. So, I don't know if I need that yet, but maybe that's in my future. I don't know. So when you look at AbbVie's quarter, great quarter, did a good job increasing their revenue year over year. But the big story with them is that they're going to increase their dividends, which is which is always a good sign to see. So they're going to increase their dividend payment 8.5% from $1.30 per share to $1.41, beginning with their dividend in February of 2022. And so when you look at that boost, if you look at the price of the stock right now, that's 5.1%. That's a 5.1% return on your money just via a dividend, which is pretty tremendous. And they've already made $17 billion in free cash flow, money they've kept this year to help support that dividend. So when you look at that, I mean, that looks pretty tremendous as an investment. So might be one to look at if you're looking for a company that's going to provide yield for you. But AbbVie is a very, very strong company. And no, that is not the company I was teasing in the beginning that I said you don't know you know them, but you know them, if you know what I mean. No, that's not them. So one of the things, so now half of all S&P 500 companies have reported earnings. We are halfway through earnings season. I'm not going to keep doing this every week. I've done it 2 weeks in a row. So unless there's just a big highlight, I'm not going to spend as much time on this as we move forward here. But one of the things that every single company has mentioned is hiring people. So my announcement to you is that if you don't like your job, if you're not in a place that you enjoy being, every company is hiring. So, find something that you're looking for. And if it were me, I mean, I would just go out and go to individual websites of companies or places that I think would be a great place to work, and I would just go after it. Go find a new position. If you're not enjoying the places that you're at, man, now is the time to go look for something else, because it was not this way after the financial crisis, after the tech bubble. Man, it was not like this. So every company is citing that they can't find enough people to work for them. So now's your opportunity to go find something else. So somebody sent me a message and said, "Why do you always talk about companies we know? Why don't you talk about some companies we don't know?" Challenge accepted. So one of the reasons I generally talk about companies is because I want you to be able to relate to them. I want you to know who they are, because you can know, okay, I know what their product is. I know how they work. And so I think it generally, when you're trying to learn about this stuff, makes it a little bit easier if you know what the company is. So as we get more advanced, starting to get more listeners, which I'm very appreciative of. Y'all have done a great job of sharing the podcast. We're getting more listeners every week. And so we'll start doing a little bit more complex stuff. It's, as far as, pointing out different companies. But this week I'm going to point out a company that, is so important in today's world, and most people don't even know about them. And the company is called ASML, and the symbol is ASML. So Asml Holdings is a company based in the Netherlands, and they make the machines that make all of these semiconductor chips. And so they provide this machine, which is called extreme ultraviolet lithography systems. Say that 5 times fast. And deep ultraviolet lithography systems, which help all of these companies create semiconductors. And so what we'll do is I'll put a 1-minute link to a YouTube video so you can kind of see a video that they've produced that shows you what they do. But all of these chip shortages that you hear about, this is the main company that makes the machine that all these other companies buy in order to make these chips. So for example, like Taiwan Semiconductor buys ASML's machine in order to be able to make the chips for all the stuff that they're doing. And so if you're wondering, okay, well, how big's this machine that they make to make all these chips? Well, the machine that they sell, has over 100,000 parts, 100,000 parts. Think about that for just a minute. And cost $150 million. So this isn't, mom and pop type companies are not buying this machine. ASML sells the machine that all the big boys buy in order to produce all the chips that go into everything all over the world, right? And as 5G continues to roll out, you're going to have microchips in your toothbrush that tell you if you have a fever or not, right? This isn't going to go away. Like the entire world is going to be connected. Every device is going to be connected, and they're going to be at the heart of that. And so they sell these machines that do this. These machines are so big, it takes 40 freight containers or 4 jumbo jets to ship this machine. I mean, this isn't, again, I'll say it again, this is not, little bitty company, little bitty machine. I mean, this is a very, very intense, very powerful machine to help produce all these chips that everybody's needing. So you're asking, well, how well is the stock doing? Well, the stock is currently priced at $812, and it started the year at $508. And 5 years ago, on November 1st of 2016, it was $100 a share. So as this market grows, with them being the leader and really the only person that makes these high machines, it's going to look, the runway looks pretty good for ASML, and obviously that could change. But it is a company that I wanted you to highlight. So how do you find companies like these? Well, when you're doing your research, you gotta think next level. So when you look at an iPhone, right? You look at an iPhone and you say, man, Apple's making a killing on these. That's true, they are. But what parts and what components go into an iPhone? And start researching who are the companies that make components that go into an iPhone. And it doesn't have to be just an iPhone, it could be anything. When you look at Boeing, you look at an airplane, what are the parts and components that go into those? What are the companies that are producing these, right? And you start kind of just bringing out your scope when it comes to doing investigations on this stuff. And you start looking into, who are making the components. And so kind of doing that, when you look at semiconductor chips and you see all over the news everywhere, there's a chip shortage, there's a chip shortage. Well, where are they going to get these from? And then you got to start figuring it out. Where do these chips come from? How do they make these? Well, you start doing that and you end up with ASML. So it's nice too because ASML isn't an American company. I kind of enjoy that because it gives me a little exposure outside of America, right? For myself, my clients. That's definitely helpful. Especially I kind of discovered them during the Trump-Biden election, or a little bit before that. And so having something that was outside of America, outside the politics of America, was nice for me to kind of diversify away from all of that. So that was one of the ways that when I was looking for different companies, that was part of the reason that I was like, let me look at this one a little bit more in depth. So, but that's kind of how you have to train yourself. But if you spend a lot of time on Instagram, I never hear anybody talking about this stuff. I just hear them talking about NFTs, cryptocurrency. Hey, look, buy this monkey EFT and it's going to go up 1,000%. Which is it? I don't know. To me, it looks like playing the lottery. I just don't know how somebody puts their money into that when they could put their money into something like this. That to me is a more true investment. But who knows? I like to invest in things that have actual value. Because when it comes to collectibles, just hear me out on this. When it comes to collectibles, you always got to find somebody who's going to buy it for more than you do. Right? Is there somebody that's going to be willing to pay more for it than I did? And that goes for all collectibles. So you better like it because you might be stuck with it. And I always think back to Beanie Babies. I don't know if you remember Beanie Babies, but that was kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember this. There's a photo of this couple inside a courtroom. They're getting divorced, and they had this huge Beanie Baby collection, and they had to have the court system watch them as they separated their Beanie Baby collection, who was going to take what. And, of course, now it's all worth nothing. So take that for what it's worth. But so many people are not willing to put in that work, right? So if you're willing to put in the work, do a little research, and you're almost 20 minutes in on this with me. So if you've made it this far, if you made it 23 episodes in, you're definitely serious about your money, your finance, investing for your future, and I'm definitely happy to have you. So with that being said, next week, I will not have a new episode. I'm going to be running the New York City Marathon, so checking a goal off my list. It was supposed to be the Berlin Marathon, which I'm now registered for 2022. I've ran New York. This will be my second time to do it. I'm going to try to do some videos from it on my Instagram story, and so maybe we'll cut that up and make it into a video. We'll see. We'll see how many videos I can actually do. The last time I ran New York, there was 50,000 people, and so when you have 50,000 people who all have cell phones, and they're all trying to look for signal, and you got all the buildings in New York, sometimes it's really hard to have connectivity, and it drains your battery a ton. Luckily, this year there's only 30,000 people. I know that doesn't sound like a big difference, but that minus 20,000 people. And will I win? I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll win. I'll keep you posted on that. So, but I'm going to be doing that, and I tell you to set goals. So I'm going to share the goals that I set for myself with you as well. And since I was signed up to run Berlin and I didn't get to do that, I looked for another marathon that I could be able to do because I've done all this training, and I didn't want it to, not that it would go to waste, but I wanted, something to show for it. So that's what I'll be doing next weekend. Maybe it'll allow you to catch up. It's funny. Most of the listeners are about 3 episodes behind when I look at the listening demographics. We're about to pass 1,500 downloads, so that's pretty neat. We'll definitely do that with the release of this episode. We're cranking up pretty well. So as always, I really do appreciate you sharing this with others, especially people who might not have a finance background, because I think they'll really benefit from this. There is a ton of misinformation out there, which goes back to why I started this in the beginning, because when you look at the Instagrams and YouTubes and just all of this, how do I become rich in 30 seconds deal? Obviously you can hit the lottery, and many people do, but most people don't. And so you got to come up with a way that's going to be a little bit more disciplined, structured, and sustainable if you really, truly want to be wealthy. So as we close here, remember that this is all for entertainment purposes only. I am not your financial advisor. So please get in touch with your financial advisor before making decisions. Do your own research, and remember that past performance is not indicative of future results. So I have been working on future guests. We're going to have somebody that's going to talk about crowdfunding for investments to be able to invest in smaller companies that aren't public yet. So I think you'll be excited and interested in that. We're also going to have somebody who's a travel expert come on and talk to us about how to get deals on travel, where to go, pros, cons, all that kind of good stuff. So look for those episodes in the coming month or so. I usually tell you to have a great week, but what I mean to say is to have a productive week. As John Wooden always said, never mistake activity for achievement. And you got to do the same thing. You got to hold yourself accountable. So since I'll be gone next week, I'll see you in 2 weeks. And check me out on Instagram to follow my progress and make sure that I, don't have a terrible time while I'm in New York. So I appreciate you listening. Thanks for the shares. I'll see you next time.